The twin sons of Drakthir, 9 beat down relentlessly, their light turning the ancient gladiatorial grounds into a furnace. The sand below was soaked in the echoes of long-forgotten wars, worn down by the tread of countless warriors. Soren Vex squinted, his eyes straining against the punishing brightness. His once proud frame now slumped under the burden of a broken suit of armor, battered by years of conflict. The roar of the crowd hit him like an assault, familiar but sharp in ways he would never confess. "Citizens of the 11 Reaches," boomed the voice of the announcer, his tone laced with arrogance. "Behold, a relic of ancient combat. Behold the fearsome butcher of the vortex." Soren's lip curled at the title. It belonged to someone else, someone who still had his strength, his pride intact. "Look at him. A cripple," someone sneered from the stands. Soren didn't bother to glance up. Their words hit too close to home. His right leg dragged slightly, the neural impairments making each step a deliberate struggle. His once deadly energy blade, the weapon that had cleaved through enemies without effort, now scraped uselessly against the sand. "I heard he took down an entire fleet of wraiths in a single night," a young fighter whispered too loudly nearby. "I heard he can barely lift his own fork now," came the mocking reply. Soren forced a grin that was half sardonic, half rueful. If only they knew how close they were to the truth. The neural storm had stolen more than his reflexes. It had taken the deadly grace that had once made him a nightmare in battle. Now, he struggled to perform even the simplest task without concentration. But he didn't need their pity. He just needed food. "The terms were clear," he shouted, his voice still carrying that commanding edge that made younger warriors stiffen. 1 match, a meal, 1 flask of water, and passage to the next system. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Men were scarce on Drakthir, 9, especially those who had survived the cataclysmic conflicts of the Vortex Wars. Even in his diminished state, Soren Vex was still worth the price of admission. The announcer continued, "The exhibition shall begin after the ceremonial rites. We are honored today by the presence of the venerable Lady Corlith, the eldest of the High Clan of Sarish." The energy in the crowd shifted instantly. What had been mockery turned to reverence. Soren could feel the collective tension in the air as all eyes turned toward the platform. Corlith Sarish stood there, a towering figure of ice-blue armor that shimmered under the twin suns. Her skin, a perfect shade of crystal, seemed to absorb the light, radiating a serene, otherworldly glow. Her eyes were the most striking feature, glowing a deep violet, sharp and predatory, yet intelligent. "By the stars," Soren muttered, watching her approach. The legends had scarcely done her justice. He straightened, forcing his battered body into a semblance of dignity, and attempted a formal bow. But his body betrayed him. His right leg buckled, and he stumbled forward, arms flailing. In a desperate, clumsy reflex, his hand grabbed onto Corlith's exposed shoulder, his fingers closing around her collarbone. A collective gasp rose from the audience, followed by a chorus of disbelief. Soren stepped back quickly, his face reddening. "My apologies, Lady Corlith," he stammered, his voice tinged with embarrassment. The guards flanking her moved with practiced speed, weapons half raised in alarm. Corlith's gaze was sharp, and for a moment her violet eyes narrowed into calculating slits. "You are either incredibly brave or monumentally foolish," she said, her voice smooth as silk, but carrying a chill of steel beneath. Soren sighed, his voice dry. "I've been called both, usually within minutes of each other." The faintest of smiles touched Corlith's lips, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "Do you understand the gravity of your actions, Vex?" she asked, her tone still tinged with amusement. Soren raised an eyebrow. "Embarrassing myself in front of the most powerful woman in the quadrant? Not the first time. Probably won't be the last." A young assistant rushed to Corlith's side, whispering urgently. She didn't take her eyes off Soren, studying him with those unnerving violet orbs. "You've made a claim," Corlith announced, her voice echoing across the arena. "A claim that has not been made in 17 cycles." Soren's brow furrowed. "A claim to what exactly?" "To me," Corlith said simply, her voice devoid of any emotion. The arena fell silent, and her words cut through the stillness. "More precisely, to a night of trial with me and my sisters." Soren blinked, his mind struggling to grasp the meaning. I was just trying not to fall on my face, Lady Corlith. Intent is irrelevant, she replied coldly. The claim has been made. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. Soren could smell the faint scent of ozone, mixed with the crisp tang of something floral. My sisters believe you too broken for us, Vex, Corlith said, her voice challenging. Perhaps they are right. Soren's chest tightened. With respect, Lady Corlith, your sisters don't know me. A flicker of something, was it appreciation? Crossed Corlith's face. Is that a formal acceptance of the claim? Soren knew he should refuse. He was no longer the warrior he had once been. His body was broken, his reflexes dulled, but in that moment, something in her gaze ignited something deep inside him. I accept, he said, the words leaving his lips before he could think better of them. The crowd erupted into chaos, gasps, shouts, and wagers. Soren had become the spectacle, but he'd faced worse odds in his life. Corlith raised a hand, and instantly, the arena fell silent. The exhibition is canceled. The claim takes precedence. She turned to Soren. Guards, escort him to the Tower of Trials. As two stern-faced women stepped forward to flank him, Soren's voice broke through the clamor. I still want my dinner. Corlith's laugh was unexpected, a warm, genuine sound that seemed to surprise even her. If you survive the trials, Vex, you'll feast like a king. As he was escorted away, whispers followed him like shadows. He won't last an hour. The sisters will tear him apart. What a waste of a once great warrior. But Soren kept his gaze fixed ahead, watching Corlith lead the way, her regal figure unwavering. He'd heard worse predictions before, and he had proven them wrong. The journey to the Tower of Trials was a blur of violet-hued skies and distant murmurs from his guards. He caught bits of conversation about ancient rites and the sacred duty of Corlith's sisters to judge a warrior's worth. When they arrived, Soren stood at the foot of the tallest tower he had ever seen, an imposing spire of crystalline stone and ancient metal that seemed to pierce the very clouds. What happens now? Soren asked, his voice steady but laced with tension. The nearest guard smirked. Now you prove your worth, or you die trying. Corlith motioned for Soren to proceed. His gait was uneven, but he held his head high, undeterred by the painful reminder of his body's fragility. Vea was the first to rise, her movements deliberate and precise, as though she were an observer rather than a participant. She circled him, her fingers tracing a long scar running from his collarbone down to his sternum. Symbiote blade, she remarked, her tone clinical. 5th generation. How did you survive that? Soren's lips twitched into a dry smile. I don't have a soul to sever. Vea's silver eyes flashed with a cold intensity. Everyone has something to lose, bone breaker, she replied, pressing her thumb against a cluster of small circular scars on his back. Soren winced involuntarily, his muscles spasming at the touch. Vea noted it, her voice carrying a note of unspoken respect. Neural dampeners. Military grade, from the looks of it. He couldn't suppress the flicker of memories that tugged at him. The past, vivid and haunting, surged through his mind. 5 years ago, on the desolate front lines of a lone sector, Cass Marin was under siege. The command center trembled as explosions shook the earth, and holographic casualty reports flickered and died. 25,000 civilians, held hostage by the defiled sphere cult. Commander Hex's voice was grim. They're using symbiotic weapons that turn people into walking bombs. It's a trap, he had said, standing before the tactical table, his body cloaked in shadows. I'll go in alone. You're mad, Vex, Hex had laughed nervously. Even you can't. The force field around Soren's wrist had dropped, and from its casing emerged a glowing, archaic sword. The Star Divider. The weapon hummed with a dangerous energy, pulsing with heat and raw power. The symbiotes respond to mass neural signatures, Soren had explained, his voice unwavering. Your squads are too many. The symbiotes can't target one mind fast enough. I can. The cult had summoned a Titan-class symbiote, but it hadn't been enough. Soren had cut through it like butter, his sword cleaving through its monstrous form. He hadn't slowed down. As the beast crumbled, he had stood among the freed hostages, panting, when the targeting lock of a neural cannon had locked onto him from above. But it wasn't an enemy platform. No one had come to help him when the cannon fired. I saved 25,000 people. I tore through hell alone. But when I fell, no one cared. Soren's voice trailed off as Nara jabbed a crackling finger into one of his more sensitive scars, his body jerking involuntarily. Oops, she smirked, showing no sign of remorse. Did that hurt, Legend? Corlitha's voice cut through the moment. Legend Nara, she warned her youngest sister, her tone warning but not unkind. Nara simply shrugged, stepping away to circle Soren again. Unlike Vea's methodical, clinical approach, Nara's inspection felt more personal, more deliberate. She traced the ridged muscles of his abdomen with a teasing touch, occasionally sending small electric charges through her fingertips. They said you were handsome, she mused, her fingers lingering longer than necessary, before she pulled her hand away with a taunting smile. Guess they were right. Soren caught her wrist before she could make another touch. I'm not a museum exhibit. Princess! The air crackled between them as sparks flew from Nara's skin, electricity snapping at his own. Her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in challenge. But before she could speak, Corlith announced, "The second trial is a tasting." Attendants brought forth a low table covered with strange dishes, their surfaces shimmering with light. Some emitted a soft, almost hypnotic hum. Each dish has a dual purpose, Vea explained, seating herself at the table, her silver eyes assessing Soren with cold calculation, sustenance and revelation. What you choose will reveal your nature. Soren eyed the spread cautiously. What if I'm not hungry? He asked. Nara's laugh was sharp and cutting. Then we'll know you're a liar as well as a coward. Everyone's hungry for something, bone breaker. She selected a blood-red fruit, sinking her teeth into it with a smile that was almost predatory. Juice dripped down her chin as she spoke. This one makes your nerves either sing with pleasure or pain. Depends on how much you can resist. Soren glanced at Corlith, who studied him silently, her violet eyes filled with unreadable intent. He reached for a dish that simmered with internal heat, its surface shifting like liquid mercury. It was a stew of some kind, but its contents twisted like a living thing. Brave choice, Vea remarked. That's kimmer broth. It reshapes itself based on your deepest fears. Soren lifted the spoon to his lips without hesitation. As soon as he tasted it, the broth morphed into something thick and dark. The smell hit him first, ozone and the unmistakable scent of burnt flesh. Without a second thought, he swallowed it down, grimacing at the taste. It was excruciating. His body felt like it was burning from the inside out. But he didn't flinch. When he finished, he set the spoon down. Nara's mocking expression had shifted to one of reluctant respect. What did you taste? Corlith asked, her voice softer now. Betrayal, Soren replied. Tastes like ash and regret. The third trial began without ceremony. The chamber darkened, and 3 holographic moons appeared in the air, 1 silver, 1 blue, and 1 violet. It's called the Dance of the 3 Moons, Vea announced, rising gracefully to her feet. You will remain standing in the center. We will orbit you. Resist our influence until the 3rd moon sets. Soren raised an eyebrow. Influence. Corlith stepped forward, her tone dark and steady. Pheromones, psychic suggestions, sensory manipulation. Every weapon a woman has in her arsenal. Bone breaker. Most men collapse in minutes, or worse. Nara's wicked grin spread as she added, It's always fun to see them beg. Soren stepped into the center of the chamber, smirking. Sweetheart, I once fought through an entire battalion on Burning Bone Station with a concussion, and still managed to fill in at the bar afterward. I can handle 3 pretty sisters dancing around me. Corlith's lips quirked. We shall see. The dance began, slow and hypnotic. The 3 sisters moved in perfect unison, their bodies fluid, mesmerizing. Soren felt it immediately, the subtle assault on his senses. Each movement sent waves of suggestion rippling through his mind, clouding his thoughts. Vea's movements were sharp and precise, her silver eyes studying him as though calculating his breaking point. Nara was all temptation, every sway of her body deliberate, every touch an invitation to lose control. Corlith danced with restrained power, her every movement speaking authority and promise. But Soren's damaged neural pathways turned out to be an unexpected advantage. The suggestions that should have overwhelmed him hit only broken fragments of his mind, losing their potency. Hours passed. The first moon, the silver one, began to set. Vea's dance became more intense, her frustration evident. The second hour brought the blue moon lower, and Nera's movements became more erratic, her electrical touch sparking dangerously. But Soren stood firm, his damaged leg trembling yet resolute. As the violet moon descended toward the horizon, Corlith's rhythm never faltered. When the third moon finally set, Corlith's voice broke through the silence. Enough. The music stopped abruptly. Soren exhaled slowly, his breath heavy. "Do I pass?" he asked, his voice steady despite the exertion. Vea's voice was a stunned murmur. "Impossible. No one has ever." Nera collapsed dramatically, groaning. "Is he even human? Or just too broken to feel anything?" "I feel plenty," Soren shot back, meeting Corlith's eyes. "Just selective about what I respond to." Later that night, on the observation deck of the tower, Soren finally voiced the truth that had been growing inside him since he first stepped onto this world. "I thought I lost my strength in the storm," he admitted, staring out the 3 moons hanging in the sky. "But maybe what I lost wasn't my power, it was my purpose, my reason to fight." Corlith's hand found his, the touch warm against the chill of the night air. "Have you found it again, Bonebreaker?" Before Soren could answer, alarm screamed to life throughout the tower, the crimson emergency lights flashing. "The swarm," Corlith muttered, her face hardening. "They've breached containment." Soren was already moving, instincts kicking in as his hand reached for the weapon that had once been part of him. "My sword," he demanded. "Where is it?" Corlith pressed her palm against a hidden panel, and the wall slid open, revealing the star divider. Soren's fingers closed around the hilt, and the blade ignited with blue flame, its power surging through his body. For the first time in 5 years, the blade responded. Soren felt the connection flare to life, and with it, the fire in his soul reignited. "I'm back," he whispered, grinning as the weapon thrummed with power. "You were never gone," Corlith replied, her voice soft with a hint of wonder. "Just waiting." The tower shook as the corridor reverberated with the tremors. Soren sprinted forward, his heart pounding in his chest, the sword blazing in his hand. The tremor of the city was palpable. Nera skidded to a halt beside them, her hands crackling with volatile electricity. "We contained them for generations," she said, eyes flashing with frustration. "But someone decided to sabotage the containment fields. This was deliberate." Below them, the elite forces of Dractor 9, the warriors who had maintained peace for decades, broke formation. Their energy weapons sputtered uselessly as the swarm's adaptive shields absorbed every strike. The soldiers faltered, either falling or retreating in disarray. "Your people are scattering," Soren observed, his tone dark. "They've never faced anything like this." Corlith's voice was laced with disappointment, but she quickly unholstered a weapon from her back. "The swarm's collective intelligence adapts to conventional tactics," she explained, her energy spear crackling with violet power. Soren's eyes narrowed, the familiar weight of battle settling over him. "Conventional, huh?" Without further warning, he vaulted over the balcony railing, ignoring Corlith's sharp shout of protest. He landed heavily 3 stories below, his damaged leg protesting the impact, but he channeled the pain into focus, his mind clearing as the star divider hummed with life at his side. A woman clutching a child froze in terror as a wave of the swarm surged toward them. Without hesitation, Soren lunged, his blade sweeping through the air with deadly precision. Blue flames trailed behind it as the blade tore through the front line of the swarm, severing metallic bodies with ease. "Run!" he barked at the woman, who snapped out of her stupor, bolting toward the evacuation zone. The swarm, sensing a threat, shifted direction, converging on Soren from all sides. His blade moved like a storm, cutting down dozens of creatures with each strike. Their adaptive shields proved useless against the ancient technology of his sword. The central node, Corlith's voice rang from above, cutting through the chaos. There must be a queen, a leader directing them. Soren barely spared a glance upward. He had already identified the pattern. The swarm was protecting something at its core. He charged directly into the thick of it, his star divider raised like a plow cutting through living metal. Corlith aimed her spear at a cluster of swarm creatures flanking Soren, but her weapon sputtered and died after a few shots. Power cells depleted, she cursed, tossing the useless spear aside. Our conventional weapons are useless against them. Vea, her tone grim, calculated the situation. Probability of survival is rapidly diminishing. Nera crackled with frustration. We can't just watch. Soren fought on, carving a bloody path through the swarm. Each strike of the star divider was fueled by a surging adrenaline, and his broken neural pathways seemed to realign, his muscle memory flooding back with a rush of deadly precision. He reached the center of the plaza, and there it was, a massive pulsating mass of writhing metallic appendages, towering above him. The Queen Node. It emitted a high-pitched signal, sending the swarm into a frenzy as it detected his presence. Soren raised the star divider above his head and brought it down in a two-handed strike. The blade split the night with a blue flame, sinking deep into the core of the Queen Node. For a moment, everything froze. Then, the Queen's defenses activated. Lightning-like tendrils erupted from the node's surface, wrapping around Soren's arms, legs, and torso. Pain shot through him as they probed his nervous system, seeking weakness. No. Corlith's voice cut through his agony. She had somehow reached the plaza floor and was rushing toward him, weaponless but with a determined look in her eyes. Soren grit his teeth, forcing the blade deeper into the Queen Node. Stay back. The Queen's defenses pulsed with new intensity, and the star divider's flame flickered, struggling against the energy drain. Soren felt his strength waning, his neural pathways failing. He dropped to his knees, fighting against the overwhelming pressure. With one last roar, primal and raw, he twisted the blade and channeled everything he had left into it. Pain, rage, hope. The sword flared blindingly bright, and a torrent of blue flame erupted, engulfing the Queen Node. The death scream of the creature reverberated through the plaza, a horrible sound of metal tearing and ancient circuits frying. The tendrils wrapped around Soren's body withered and fell away. All across the city, the swarm fell, lifeless. Soren stood, swaying, the star divider now dimmed his trembling hands. His body had given everything it had. His vision narrowed, and a strange calm settled over him. He had done it. But at what cost? His legs buckled beneath him, and the blade slipped from his grip. Catch him. Corlith's voice seemed to come from a great distance. Soren felt arms around him, not 2, but 6. The Orchiner sisters, all of them, supporting his fall. Their combined strength gently lowered him to the ground. Neural cascade failure, Vea diagnosed, her tone clinical, though concern flashed in her silver eyes. His pathways are collapsing completely. Not today, Corlith countered fiercely, her hands pressing against Soren's temples. Sisters. What happened next was beyond Soren's fading consciousness. The 3 sisters formed a triangle around him, their hands linked. Energy, not electrical like Nera's, but something deeper and more primal, flowed between them and into him. It coursed through his broken neural pathways, not healing them, but creating new connections, alternate routes for commands to travel from brain to body. The last thing Soren saw before everything faded to darkness was Corlith's determined face, her blue eyes blazing with effort and something else, fear, but not of him, for him. Later, Soren awoke to the soft glow of dawn spilling through the windows of the violet towers. The room was quiet, but the 3 sisters were there, each monitoring his recovery with an air of quiet concern. Welcome back to the living, Nera quipped, though her usual sarcasm was tempered with genuine warmth. Soren tried to sit up, surprised when his body responded without issue. The tremor that had plagued his right hand was gone. His damaged leg held his weight without protest. What did you do to me? He asked, flexing his fingers experimentally. Quantum neural rewiring, Vea explained. An ancient technique of our people, rarely used and never before on a male subject. We created new pathways where your damaged ones couldn't be recovered. You could have died. Corlith added, her voice tight with lingering anger, not just in the swarm but from their intervention as well. Soren stood cautiously, testing his balance. His movements felt different, not the fluid grace of his prime, but something new, something just as effective in its own way. Worth the risk, he replied simply. Nera snorted. He's still an idiot. The people are calling you the savior Dractor, 9. Vea informed him, bringing up a holographic display of crowds gathered below the tower. Your actions have been broadcast across the planet. Soren waved dismissively. I'm no savior, just a soldier who remembered how to fight. You're more than that, Corlith murmured, her eyes softening. The sisters exchanged a look, some silent communication passing between them before Nera and Vea discreetly exited the room, leaving Corlith and Soren alone. He walked to the balcony, pushing open the doors to greet the cool night air. Below, the cleanup crews worked to remove the last of the fallen swarm, the city slowly recovering. The trials, Soren mused. Did I pass? Corlith's footsteps were soft as she joined him. You exceeded any test we could have devised. She placed a hand on his shoulder, turning him to face her in the moonlight. Her green skin seemed to glow, her blue eyes reflecting the starlight. You proved one man could be stronger than 3 sisters, she said softly, her fingers undoing the fastenings of her ceremonial robe. Though perhaps stronger isn't the right word. What is? Soren asked, his voice low as he watched her movements. Worthy, Corlith answered, standing before him in nothing but moonlight and confidence. Equal, necessary. Soren closed the distance between them, his body responding with an intensity he had long forgotten. The sisters moved with practiced efficiency, disentangling themselves from the moment. Nera casually tossed a robe over Soren, sparks of electricity still crackling from her fingertips. Knock next time, nephew, she said with her usual bluntness, utterly unbothered. Unless you want another psychology session with Aunt Vea about natural biological imperatives. Zarek's face contorted in horror. Once was enough. Forever. He straightened, doing his best to salvage some dignity despite the crimson flush creeping up his neck. The Krell delegation landed 30 minutes ahead of schedule, he reported, his voice smoothing over the earlier awkwardness. Commander Lissa says it's a deliberate intimidation tactic. Soren swung his legs over the bed's edge, immediately transitioning from lover to strategist. Sounds like the Krell. Tell Lissa to keep them waiting in the amber reception hall. No refreshments. I already did, Zarek responded, his embarrassment fading, replaced by the easy confidence he'd inherited from all his parents. And I activated the subsonic discomfort emitters. A proud smile crossed Soren's face. That's my boy. Subtle but effective. Zarek beamed for a moment before remembering his dignity. Arya's already running background profiles on their delegation. She found 3 discrepancies in their diplomatic credentials. Of course she did, Vea added, a note of approval in her voice as she thought of her 7-year-old daughter, whose computational abilities had already surpassed the palace's AI systems. Tell your siblings we'll meet in the strategy room in 15 minutes, Corlith instructed, her royal authority taking over with ease, the earlier moment of intimacy fading seamlessly into professionalism. After Zarek left, Soren chuckled. Remember when we could get through a morning without interplanetary incidents? No, came the immediate response, all 3 sisters speaking in unison. The family strategy room, once a formal war chamber, now buzzed with activity. 6 children and 4 adults gathered around the massive holographic display, a scene of organized chaos. This room, with its strategic displays and advanced technology, was the true power center of the Dractor 9 Alliance. Though few outsiders understood the intricate family dynamic, it was what had transformed their once isolated world into an interstellar diplomatic powerhouse. Soren's gaze swept across the room, filled with pride as he looked at their children. Zarek stood beside Corlith, composed and regal, a born leader. Kellen, Vea's son, manipulated probability models with inherited silver eyes that missed nothing. Fiery twins Alara and Talone, Nera's contributions literally sparkled with electrical current when they were excited, and little Nova, Rima's youngest, sat perched on Soren's restored exosuit, her unnerving intensity watching the proceedings. 6 children, 6 impossibilities. The first human Xanarin hybrids in recorded history. The Krell position is untenable, Kellen announced, his fingers dancing across projections. There's a 92.8% probability they're using diplomatic overtures to mask fleet movements in the Corellian expanse. Arya, Corlith's daughter, nodded, her sharp blue eyes narrowing. Their resource allocation pattern confirm it. They're stockpiling Tyleum at twice their normal consumption rate. Can we fight them? Talon asked eagerly, tiny sparks dancing from his fingertips. Soren exchanged a glance with Corlith. Their children had known nothing but peace, prosperity, and power, a dangerous combination. We don't fight unless absolutely necessary, Soren reminded them, his voice heavy with the weight of someone who had seen too much war. Our strength isn't in our weapons. It's in knowing when not to use them, says the legendary Bonebreaker. Era, their eldest, rolled her eyes with preteen exasperation. Yes, Soren answered seriously, his gaze hardening. Says exactly the man who earned that name, and who wishes none of you ever have to. The room fell silent. Even at their young ages, the children understood their father's history, how he had been betrayed by those he had fought to protect, how he had lost everything before finding a new purpose on Dractor 9. Vea broke the moment with her usual efficiency. The Krell believe we don't know about their violations of the Hadrian Accords. This gives us leverage. Corlith agreed, continuing Vea's strategy. While they think we're distracted by meaningless diplomacy, Nera continued, we position our own assets. Soren's voice joined in, completing the plan. Exactly. We move quietly, and we make our move when they least expect it. The 4 of them, Soren, Corlith, Vea, and Nera, function as a single strategic mind, years of partnership, making their teamwork seamless. Their children watched, fascinated, as their parents demonstrated the unity that had made the Dractor 9 alliance unassailable for a decade. Later, standing on a private balcony overlooking the capital's crystalline skyline, Soren found a rare moment of solitude. The Star Divider hung at his side, its ancient power now fully integrated with his rewired neural pathways. Having deep thoughts again? Corlith stepped beside him, her hand finding his. Just reflecting on impossible things, Soren replied with a quiet smile. 10 years ago, I was a broken weapon, looking for one last battle to die in. He gestured toward the sprawling city, the spaceport where ships from dozens of worlds docked peacefully, and the distant academy where their children train alongside students from former enemy nations. Now, I'm the luckiest damn fool in 3 sectors. Father of legends in the making, Corlith teased, her lips curling into a smile. Husband to 3 impossible women, Soren added with a playful grin. Consort prime, Corlith corrected with mock severity. Fancy title for keeping 3 sisters satisfied, Soren teased, pulling her against him. Her expression turned serious then. The Krell situation could mean war, regardless of our diplomatic efforts. You know that. Soren nodded. I do. The children will want to fight, Corlith warned. They're too young. They're not, Soren replied firmly. They were younger when we first saw a battle, Corlith reminded him, and they have abilities we're only beginning to understand. The combination of your human resilience and our Xantran evolutionary advantages. Soren knew she was right. Their children were extraordinary, stronger, faster, more intelligently adaptive than either humans or Xanarans. The universe would not let such potential remain untested forever. I wanted to give them what we never had, Soren admitted. Time to just be children. Corlith leaned her head against his shoulder. You have, but the stars are calling them, just as they once called us. Inside, the sounds of children arguing echoed to the halls, followed by Nera's sharp reprimand and Vea's measured intervention. It was the beautiful chaos of family life. Chaotic, unpredictable, precious. We'll face whatever comes next, Soren decided, looking out at the skyline. Together, as we always have. Corlith smiled, a rare and unguarded expression of pure affection crossing her face. The legend of the Bone Breaker may have brought you to us, but it's Ryan Cavano, The man, not the myth, who built this future. Soren kissed her forehead, thinking of the extraordinary family they had created, of the 6 impossible children who carried their legacy forward, of the adventure still awaiting them all. As the Krell threat loomed and unknown stars beckoned, Soren whispered, the legends were nothing. He turned, stepping away from the balcony. The truth is everything. The star divider hummed softly at his side, ready to join his family in writing the next chapter of a story far greater than any legend. Behind him, in the distant night sky, a new star flared briefly. Too briefly for most to notice, but Soren noticed, and he wondered what new challenge the universe had in store for them.